Good morning, everybody. 5:45 a.m. on Thursday, June 15th. Ask me anything. We'll go ahead and kick this off. Pardon me. It's 5:45 a.m. I got to drink my coffee. Come on. Okay. Got the questions pulled out. A lot of good stuff. And we'll just dive right in. We're good to go. So here we go. I guess just some more housekeeping. I'm going to try to keep pumping this, months in advance. If you can get out to the Rogue Invitational October, plan on being there. It'd be great to see you. Head out there if you can. And yeah, that's that. All right. So let's see. The first most upvoted is from a member by the name of Patrick S. It says, frog in my throat. Apologies. It says, even though we understand that the order in which you program workouts is intentional, we can scale or modify our intensity, there's still some days when muscle soreness would tempt us to swap days around. Maybe my legs are still sore from Saturday's squats, and so instead of doing lunges on Tuesday and then bike intervals on Wednesday, I'm going to aid in the recovery, et cetera, et cetera. So moving days around, basically. Is this the right approach to promote recovery and gains? Or are there times when it's beneficial to train when you're sore and prepare us for anything that life might throw at us, etc., etc.? Or should you keep them in the order that they are and modulate your intensity no matter how you feel? Okay, so I guess the short, simple answer is, if you have the opportunity to do the workouts in the order that they are written out, that would be the best course of action and the one that you should try to stick to. However, if something forces you to change that, then by all means change it. It's not ideal, but it's far better than nothing. And in relation to working out on a particular body part, upper body, lower body, wherever that might be sore, and is that good, bad, indifferent, promoting recovery, promoting gains, and all of that stuff, yes, there is 100% benefit to working out on muscle groups that are sore every now and then. Now, you don't always want to be walking around smashed and working out smashed and feeling like that. And if you are, then I would say, because you could do the same week's workouts and feel like a truck hit you every single day of the week, or you might feel that way after a particular workout or two. If you're feeling like that all the time, then it probably comes back to modulating intensity and allowing yourself to take the foot off the gas every now and then and just slow the heck down. That's going to be one of the largest driving factors of whether or not you feel profoundly sore or whatnot, even more than loading and things like that. I'll give you an example. If you do 150 air squats, will you be sore? And one of the biggest factors is, I would say, it depends on how long it takes you to do that. If you just grin and bear it and you do 150 unbroken air squats, screaming through the burning in your backside, you're going to be very sore. It's 150 air squats. If you do 150 air squats over the course of 15 hours and you do 10 air squats an hour for 15 hours, you still did 150 air squats in that same day. You're not going to feel anywhere near the exact same, devastation afterwards, even though the work that you did was the same. The intensity piece, meaning the time domain in which it took you, was wildly different. So if you are feeling like that all the time, it's probably good just to slow down every now and then and allow yourself a training day versus a testing day, right? And a training day is when you're just going to go out there. You're just going to do the movements that they are. You're going to move at a moderate conversational pace. You're going to go ahead, get in a nice cool down and stretch and go home, and you're going to feel good to go. So getting back to the question, if you can keep them in the order that they are, great. I mean, they're laid out there for a reason. But if you want to move them around, or if life demands that you move them around, and that's your option, is either that or don't work out, then by all means, move them around. But yes, there's benefit to working out on sore legs. There's actually a lot of benefit, getting back to like the original intent of the methodology, which was not training to peak on a certain day, but just walking around in a continual ready state. You know, if you're a weightlifter and that's your sport, you're a powerlifter and that's your sport, you're a runner and that's your sport or whatever, and you know that I have a competition on this particular day on the calendar, it's 12 weeks out, well, you don't want to walk into that competition sore. You know exactly the confines of your environment and you're looking to peak on a very particular day. That's sport versus real life. You know, real life is you don't know what you're going to have to face on any particular day. And now for most of us that live a wonderful life, that might sound crazy, right? Like, what do you mean? I don't know what I have to do. My life's the same every day. I get up, I do whatever my morning routine is, I commute to work, I sit in my cubicle for 8 hours, I drive home, I have dinner, I watch Netflix for 3 hours, and I go to bed. What do you mean face the unknown, the unknowable? True, and maybe that is your existence, and if that's the case, that's a wonderful blessing. In some regards, a boring life is a wonderful blessing. But there are plenty of people out there that wear a uniform for a living that truly actually don't know what they're going to have to face on any particular day. Boring day, a fight, a long engagement, a short engagement. If you're in the military, is there hills, adverse terrain, heavy loads included, down man drills, whatever it is. And you might have to do whatever that is, especially if you're overseas in the military or something, or first responder. Like the same thing might happen through bad luck multiple days in a row. And so your body might be sore or overworked in one particular area, but the demands of your occupation, the balloon went up again, and you got to do the same darn thing again, and nobody cares that you feel a particular way. Now, is that the ideal thing to probably maximize your health and fitness over the course of your life? Probably not, but the real world doesn't care about that. And so point being, there's benefit every now and then, not all the time, not living in that constant state of soreness, but there's benefit every now and then to exposing yourself to what that feels like. Hey, my legs are sore and I'm going to use my legs because I'm not training for a competition, because I'm trying to give myself this broad, general, and inclusive fitness, this ability to do whatever, and I want to know in a safe and controlled environment, aka, my garage, how that feels, so then I know my personal limits. I know what I can do, I know what I can't do, I know what I can push through, I know what I can't push through, I know what a run is going to feel like on tired, heavy legs, because certain people might have to go ahead and do that. I know what all that feels like, and I know what it feels like, and I've experimented with it, and I know my parameters. That's really, really, really useful. And a lot of that is the original intent of the methodology, and so there's absolute benefit to that. However, talking about the workouts being laid out in a particular order, I think we're going to get to this later on as well, but that whole thing that I mentioned, let's actually walk through what this week was. And I'm even going to say what tomorrow's workout is, so spoiler alert, if you don't want to know, you shouldn't watch the video. And I'm going to let you know what Saturday's workout is. If you don't want to know that, don't watch this video. But let's walk through what this week actually was, and then I think it's almost like if you're in mixed martial arts and you're going from white belt eventually to black belt, as people's knowledge of strength and conditioning increases through trial and error, these podcasts, whatever it happens to be, I think one of the final steps of achievement that I actually think that even a lot of people that have been doing CrossFit or strength and conditioning for a really long time don't get is two huge subjects, and we've talked about them before. The first one being modulating intensity. I don't think anywhere near enough people do that or understand it or implement it or realize how profoundly beneficial and mission critical it is. And the other one is the concept of testing versus training. I do not think enough people understand those two differences as well. And probably because a lot of that stuff, it wasn't part of the original methodology. It wasn't there. Modulating intensity was not discussed. Period, end of story. It was the benefits of high intensity. And training versus testing was never discussed. It was just you went into the gym and you burned it down every day. And I think that is what some people who are potentially stuck in the past would do themselves a favor by understanding those concepts. And people call me a classic CrossFit programmer or individual all the time, and that's true to some degree. But there's a whole lot of things that we have evolved or changed at Linchpin based upon lessons learned over the course of a couple of decades that I feel at the same time still stay true to that original methodology, but are most certainly different, or evolutions, if you will. And even, Greg Glassman, in his own words that I heard him say multiple times, we're not quoting, but this is paraphrasing, is he'd get some question from the audience about, like, hey, is what we're doing here good for us long term? High intensity, every workout, every day, is this actually good for us long term? And God bless him, he'd be very honest and be like, I don't know. Beats me. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but he was brutally honest. And he would tell people, look, this has never been done before. Most of the world's working out at low intensity on machine-based movements, isolation movements, single joint movements, 3 sets of 10 on the pec deck, then you rest a minute, another 3 sets of 10 on the pec deck, and you do that, then you do your abs at a totally different part, and then you casually move on the elliptical for 45 minutes while you read a magazine, you hope for the best. No one's really, at least back then, no one's really doing functional movements. Deads and squats and cleans and thrusters and burpees. No one's doing that. No one's going to the track day to burn it down. No one's doing mixed modality training, where instead of segmenting everything, like I said before, they're putting it all together. Like, no one's doing any of the stuff that we're doing, let alone doing it at intensity. So is this the best for you for the rest of your life, into your 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s? No one knows, because everyone right now is currently involved in the largest human experiment ever done on functional movements and high intensity training. You're all part of an experiment, whether you realize it or not. And the other part of what she would say is that since we're all part of an experiment, whatever the next evolution was, whatever the next advancement of the methodology was, chances are was not going to come from CrossFit HQ. Because it was just a numbers game. If there was 10,000 or 12,000 or however many thousand affiliates out there, well, what are the chances that some sort of evolution or something was going to be observed and implemented that was useful? There's a numbers game. It was going to come from this one group of like 100 people working at HQ, or from 12,000 affiliates out there every day dealing with clients, looking at people, observing people, figuring out what happens, tracking the data. One entity versus 12,000 entities. Chances are it's probably going to come from somewhere out there in the community, some gym owner actually doing this stuff every day. And so some of the things that we do here at Linchpin are exactly that. I feel it's the evolution of the methodology that Greg was talking about that will allow you to actually maximize your fitness over the course of your lifetime, and lessons learned from just the original concepts that were put out there that were wonderful and amazing, but I feel like left a little bit on the table, such as that training versus testing, such as that modulating intensity and things like that. Those are mission critical things. And maybe it's time for a whole nother video on training versus testing. That might be good. Okay, sorry, that was a total tangent right there. But let's talk about this week and how the workouts were laid out this week, okay? And if you've got it in front of you, great. You could scratch these down on a piece of paper if you totally want to nerd out and look at them. But Monday, we had the deadlift and burpee box jump over workout. Nasty workout. That was Monday. Tuesday, we had a workout with walking lunges, ring rows, toes to bar, and push press. So let's just look at those two ones. On Monday, it was a heavy day at a high heart rate. We pulled from the ground. On Tuesday, we didn't pull from the ground, but yes, we did go below parallel on those legs that were probably tired from the deadlift. But we went below parallel in a specific way, unweighted, okay, and just a walking lunge, and done, if you understand also the concept of modulating intensity, done at a conversational pace. That was a great day for a low intensity day, especially after how challenging Monday was. Do a good warm up and just do those walking lunges, stopping when you need to, shaking out the legs, etc., etc. Cool down after that, and then there's a really good chance, because movement is medicine, and a lot of times moving whatever part of your body is sore is actually so much more beneficial in alleviating that soreness than not moving that part of the body. So yes, the legs are a bit sore from the deads. Moving them the next day is actually a really good thing. So you're not only getting some feeling as to what it feels like to work out on sore, tired legs, etc., but there's a really good chance that after that, after Tuesday's workout with those unweighted walking lunges, done at a low or moderate intensity, and as I put out a modulating intensity video every single week on Friday that I post in the BTWB Squads feature and in the private Facebook group. Like I said during that one, that ain't going to be a high intensity day for me. I can look at the week and tell you that. It's going to be a shakeout day. Shakeout day, cool down, probably felt pretty darn good. Then you wake up on Wednesday, and what do you have? We had 6x400 meter repeats. Yes, legs, but not pulling from the ground and not going below parallel and utterly and completely unloaded. And the load that we had on Tuesday was going overhead with the push press. So we had load on Monday, pulling from the ground, load going overhead on Tuesday, but with the push press, and Tuesday's workout was actually percentage based, so it kind of met you exactly where you are. And then we had a whole bunch of people, PR their 6x400 meter runs, which was phenomenal, on quote unquote tired legs. But if we look at what happened Monday, the shakeout that I would have said should have occurred on Tuesday, and then you get there on Wednesday, you're doing the 6x400 meter repeats. Great, fantastic. Now, Thursday's a rest day, okay? Monday, pull from the ground, deadlift. Tuesday, below parallel, unweighted walking lunge. Wednesday, not below parallel, not pulling from the ground, running. Thursday, rest day. Now, if you didn't swap around those days, which again were laid out for a reason, that's probably a good thing, because what's coming up on Friday? Friday is 4 sets of 8 on the front squat. 4 sets of 8 on the front squat. It's going to be a day. Now let's look at this. Okay, that's Friday, 4 sets of 8 front squat. If you kept the days how they were laid out, then the last time you went below parallel was Tuesday on unweighted walking lunges. Unweighted is much different than 4 sets of 8. Walking lunge, you get that single leg work in there, different than both legs working on the front squat. So we're getting some great variance in there for how we're using the legs, the actual movement of lunging versus front squats, and profoundly heavy versus totally unloaded. All those things done intentionally. And since you did those lunges on Tuesday, and now the next time you go below parallel is on Friday, that's 72 hours. That's a beautiful period of time. So, if you kept the days how they were, while those legs might have been tired on Tuesday because of the deadlifts that you worked out on Monday, how the week was laid out was by the time that 4 sets of 8 heavy came around, you hadn't gone below parallel in 72 hours. You ran on Wednesday, you had an off day on Thursday, Friday rolls around, let's go below parallel. Awesome. Beautiful. Perfect. As much as I can set you up for success on Friday, you are set up for success on Friday. Now, if you moved around those lunges to Wednesday, well, now you didn't get that period of time that I just said right there. And you may actually be setting yourself up not quite as well for the heavy front squats on Friday. So it's all there again. So if you can keep them in the order that they are, fantastic. If not, you do what you got to do. Okay. Let's see. I talked about that way longer than I thought I would. I'm going to try to hustle here because the family's getting up a little bit, and we get a real life happening here. All right, let's see. Marcus M., can you address the term all-out effort for time? Oh, Marcus, I wish you gave me where you saw that or what that was in relation to. I have a feeling that that's how something was labeled in the BTWB app. There are some things that are just labeled in the BTWB app a certain way that I would personally like to see different. Like, for example, if I write something not for time, in the BTWB app, it doesn't really come out as not for time, it says for quality. So sometimes, like, even though I want to label something not for time, it says for quality, which I've been open about that I can't stand that phrase because everything you do should be for quality, even your for time workouts. So I've got a feeling that if something is just a maximum effort or an all-out effort. It says all-out effort for time. So that could be how it's labeled on the 6x400 meter repeats or something like that. But it's exactly what it sounds like. It's probably a time trial sort of a thing, meaning pour your heart and soul into it, with the caveat that applies to everything, like I just said before, of understanding modulating intensity, understanding training versus testing. And even though if those 6x400 meter repeats, they are quote unquote for time, which usually implies you're going to try as hard as you can. Well, if you intelligently looked at your week and decided what days were going to be high intensity and low intensity and moderate intensity, every day is not a maximal effort. So even if, as it lays out, those 6x400 meter repeats are quote unquote for time, I did them yesterday at a moderate effort because I looked at my week, I laid out my high intensity days, I chose my moderate and low intensity days, and that's what it was. So, all right, Eric CM. When is it unhealthy to be a competitive athlete? I understand that we should compete with ourselves and strive to be better than we were yesterday, but let's be honest, some days all I want to do is be on top of the leaderboard. Why not dream about beating Ben's time or Tana's numbers? How bad or good can using competition as a motivation be? There's nothing wrong with being competitive and using that to drive you at all. I shouldn't say at all. It just depends upon the individual. Okay? People are interesting creatures, and what motivates each person is a little bit different. What makes them happy is a little bit different. What bums them out is a little bit different. And so here's what I mean by that. Some people chasing somebody, they like it. It fires them up. It helps them keep a little bit of juice when they work out and makes them go quicker. If that's you and you enjoy the chase, the competitive aspect, you find some people that you identify, you go back and forth, awesome, that's fantastic. But it's a big world out there, and chances are there's also some people that their mentality, for whatever reason, doesn't respond well to that. If somebody does beat them, it makes them feel not like a good person, or like the training's not going well, or like this is all for nothing. Why am I even here? I'm not the best, or this person keeps beating me. That's not the good or bad of competition. That's just how each person's mentality relates to it. So if competition is something that for you personally is a good thing, it's a motivating thing, it drives you in a positive fashion, compete away, my friend. Absolutely get after it. It just depends on who you are. In a bizarre way, I'm actually a little bit of the opposite. Sometimes like a competitive environment sucks the fun out of it for me. Because sometimes my workout is just like, it's my thing that I do for myself every day. And I know personally that I make good decisions when I understand what I need to do, and maybe it's a low or a moderate intensity day. And if I'm racing somebody, that might, on a day that I should tone it down a bit, force me not to, and then I walk around like I'm wrecked in the next couple of days, and that's not good. So it just depends upon the person, depends upon the workout, depends upon what's going on. But if you can harness the positive aspects of competition, good on you. Totally good to go. Nothing wrong with that at all. Let's see. Okay. Dooley R. I can't remember if it was a Linchpin podcast or a Very Not Random, but I believe you were hinting towards a cardio/endurance/running type program that you were working on. Is that still in the works, or did I imagine it? Is it wishful thinking? Yes, it is true. It is happening, and it's really close to happening. This thing took so much longer than I ever would have envisioned. I was wildly off of my timeline. I've learned to just keep some things to myself. But this thing, it's a really awesome running and strength and conditioning program that I think people will really benefit from. I don't know of anything else like it out there. It's been months and months of work and labor, and we finally have all the information and all the videos are recorded. Everything's laid out. And then we have all of that stuff put into the ebook format. It's been given to our ebook designer and creator that will take all that content and actually lay it out in a beautiful ebook. We're at the final stage, which is awesome. I don't know how long the ebook creator will take. I don't think super long, but we're at the final stages. We'll get that ebook back, review it, make sure it's good to go, and then it will launch as a VNR cycle, a VNR program. And it should be really, really awesome. So yes, it's a real thing. It's happening. The second that it comes out, I'll let everybody know about it. The second that it comes out, I think Adrian and I will do a Very Not Random podcast about it, and it should be pretty cool. Okay, let's see. Todd G, is there a recommended ratio we can use for kipping pull-ups to strict pull-ups for a workout? I have a very light, narrow rack with a pull-up bar across the top. If I try to kip, it will tip over. Let's see. I don't want to cheat myself out of a good workout. So I would say like a 0.7. I mean, actually anywhere from a 0.5 to a 0.7, like doing half to like 70% of the reps is probably a good range for a lot of people. You want just like a general recommendation. But I would also say a big part of it is it just depends upon how good you are at strict pull-ups also. If you're quite capable at strict pull-ups and what's a 2159 kipping, you can do obviously slower with strict as a 2159, but still moving pretty good with like really short breaks. Then you might not have to modify the repetitions at all. Now if you struggle with strict pull-ups and you're far better at kipping pull-ups and the time domain would be wildly different, then yes, knocking down the reps in some way, shape, or form would make sense. And I'd use one of those ratios that I just said a second there. What I would also highly encourage you to do, and they're not expensive, so it's not very cost prohibitive, is get yourself a band. Matter of fact, get a few bands would be ideal. And then if you've got this pull-up bar that's very tippy and you can't kip on at all, what you could find is the perfect little light band that doesn't give you too much help, but gives you just a little bit so that you can hang on for a longer set of strict pull-ups and maybe match the numbers that are in the regular prescribed workout, but you're working for it, or maybe you need to come off, once or twice for short breaks. But a nice little band I think would serve your needs really well, and probably a lot of other people. And bands are just useful to have around in general, and they're not very expensive. So I would use either those ratios, or I would go ahead and get yourself a band. I think that'll work fantastic. Let's see. I'm going to try to hustle through this here as well. Marius, is doing strict handstand push-ups the best way to get better at them, or would you recommend a different approach to getting more strict handstand push-ups, and same for other skills as well? Yes, I would. For reference, I could do 4 or 5 handstand push-ups. So yes, if you want to get better at strict handstand push-ups, you should do strict handstand push-ups, but you should also do as many other things as you can, because I truly believe variance is one of the keys to the kingdom on that. So if you're talking about wanting to get better at strict handstand push-ups, do strict handstand push-ups, do shoulder press with a barbell, do one-arm shoulder presses with a dumbbell or a kettlebell, do Turkish get-ups, do handstand holds against a wall, practice your handstand walking, do slow negatives, do overhead stabilization such as snatching or overhead squats and things of that nature. Improve your triceps through push-ups, bench press, ring dips, box dips, things of that nature. And all of that combined together will help your overhead stability, will help your shoulder, your chest, your upper back, your triceps. All of those muscle groups are going to be very beneficial to you improving your strict handstand push-ups. So I wouldn't do just strict handstand push-ups to get better at handstand push-ups. And that would be the same thing if somebody was working on their ring muscle-ups. I wouldn't say just do ring muscle-ups. You do ring muscle-ups, you do low ring muscle-ups, banded ring muscle-ups, you do kipping pull-ups, you would do strict pull-ups, you would do bent over rows, you would do all kinds of pressing movements to make sure you're great at pressing out of the dip. You would work on just the transition every now and then. You do all that great stuff as well. So variance is your friend. Okay, let's see. All right, let's hit this one here from Ben P. And then I have to go get my daughter up. Okay, so let's see. Ben's question is, and it's a great question, If fitness is, quote unquote, increased work capacity across broad time and modal domains, then when we do not for time, or scale, or do less weight, or we do a slower time than a previous attempt, are we still getting fitter? Especially if, one of those workouts that was a repeat workout was slower than last time. How is fitness still achieved if that time was slower than last time? And do we still make progress if we, quote unquote, just get the work done? Awesome question. Love the question. This relates back to what I was saying earlier, training versus testing. We'll go there in a second. But first of all, Ben, you've answered your own question in the first sentence, and I don't think you realized it. So your first sentence is, if fitness is, quote unquote, increased work capacity across broad time and modal domains, then etc., etc. That's not the definition of fitness. Fitness is not increased work capacity across broad time and modal domains. That word increased does not belong there. The definition of fitness from CrossFit's perspective is work capacity across broad time and modal domains. That is fitness. Your goal of working out is to increase your fitness, aka increase the definition, work capacity across broad time and modal domains. But the definition of fitness is not increased work capacity across broad time and modal domains, because that would be unsustainable for every single human being on the face of the planet if the word increased was part of the definition of fitness, because then anyone who actually stuck around for their whole life and continued working out, because if you worked out your whole life, you're not going to be doing better at 65 than you were at 25. You're going to be doing worse. You're going to lift less. You're going to run slower. You're going to get less rounds of Cindy. Your Fran time is going to be worse. That's if you've been working out nonstop from 25 to 65, right? If you never worked out in your life and you start at 65, then yes, you're fitter. But if you've been working out your whole life doing functional movements and intensity, you're not going to be fitter at 65 than you were at 25 years old. And so that's why the word increased is not part of the definition of fitness. So the fact that you are you're working on your work capacity across you have the ability to perform work across broad time and modal domains, that's fitness. Now the goal of what we do is to increase your fitness. That's our goal. So those are two very different things. And let's see. And your question about, well, what happens if a workout comes up and we don't do as well as we did last time? Well, that's less than we did last time, so are we still fit? Yes, you are absolutely still fit. And again, that's because increased is not part of the definition. And also because you're a human being. And just because you've done a workout before does not mean you're going to be better at it, because there are 100 other factors that are going to influence that, from how you slept, to your nutrition, to your stress, to your willingness to suffer on any one particular day. Sometimes you feel fired up, sometimes you don't. And all of those things are going to impact how you do in any particular workout. It will also have to do on what did you do the 1, 2, or 3 days prior to that workout compared to what happened 6 months ago when you did the workout. What were the 1, 2, or 3 prior days on that particular one? Like I lined out earlier with the deadlifts and the lunges and the front squats and the 4x8. How did the workouts lay out on that particular day? And also the whole training versus testing deal. I always say this all the time, is that strength and conditioning is really easy. It really is easy. Strength and conditioning is easy. People are hard. People crawl inside their own heads and make things way bigger or more complicated, or they spiral out of control. If let's say Helen, fantastic workout, right? Running, kettlebell swings, and pull-ups. Let's say that today was Helen, and I did Helen 6 months ago, and I do Helen today, and you know what? 15 seconds slower today than I was 6 months ago. Does that mean that I'm not as fit as I was 6 months ago? Maybe. Actually, I have to be open to that possibility. Maybe. But it also could just mean that you're 15 seconds slower, whoop-de-doo, because of how you slept or how you ate or how the days lined up, or you're stressed out, or for whatever reason, you walked out into the garage and you just, didn't feel like absolutely burning the house down. And so you held back 1.7% from last time, and that shook out to 15 seconds. But now a CrossFitter could look at that 15 seconds and go, oh no, slower than last time. The sky is falling. The sky is not falling. This all goes back to, training versus testing is, in the long run, he or she wins who continues to work out. Okay? Who continues to work out, who continues to dead and squat and push themselves and all that good stuff. And if your goal is not short-term, it's long-term. You want to be doing this not for a month or a year, but for a decade, for 2 decades, for 3 decades. Consistency wins. Period. End of story. Consistency wins. And to keep yourself consistent, then there are things that are very beneficial to that, such as, not for time workouts, kind of for time workouts, scaling every now and then if you feel like you need it, taking an extra rest day. If all of those little things keep you in the game as the weeks, months, and years pass, then you are winning. Period. End of story. That's the goal. That's fitness across your lifetime. That's what we're going for here. And that whole training versus testing thing, a lot of it actually just does come down to your willingness to suffer. If Helen's the workout of the day and I walk out there, I know what it feels like to try to PR Helen. I know that I'm going to have to keep myself so horrifically uncomfortable on those runs that it's going to feel like I'm having a one-on-one conversation with Satan in my lungs. I just might not feel like doing that today. That's a unique feeling to want to chase that and really get after a PR. So I might just go do Helen, plenty challenging at a plenty high intensity, but not a lifetime PR intensity. And so I'm a little slower than I was last time. Totally good to go. Absolutely and totally good to go. I don't need to beat my last Helen to maintain my fitness. Now, if it comes up and I really want to go for it, well, then I just made that a testing day versus a training day. Let's take these front squats that are coming up on Friday. 4 sets of 8 front squat. If this workout has come up before, I guess my point, you don't have to beat your loading from the last time you did a 4x8 front squat to get the training benefit from a 4x8 front squat day. You do not need to PR. What your body needs is to go below parallel heavy, because that's the training stimulus that makes sense based upon where we've been and where we're going. As I laid out those days, Monday we pulled from the ground. Tuesday we went below parallel, walking lunges, unloaded. Wednesday ran, Thursday day off, Friday comes around, heavy day below parallel, makes sense. That day is planned that day because it makes sense. The movement makes sense, the rep range makes sense based upon how we've squatted previously. You don't have to PR your 4x8 front squat on Friday. Utterly and completely unnecessary. What you need to do is lift something appropriately challenging for 4 sets of 8, and you win. If you happen on one of those days, based upon how your body feels and all that stuff, to do a set of 8 that is better than any set of 8 you've ever done, cool. I mean, it's very cool. It's a lifetime PR, fantastic. But if you don't get a lifetime PR, if that's the only metric, whether you PR or not, that you analyze whether or not a day has training value, then I think you're doing yourself a tremendous disservice, and I think you have a mindset that is short-term, not long-term, and strength and conditioning will be very challenging for you. Because if you hang around long enough, every repeat workout's not going to be a PR. It's just simply not, if you hang around long enough. And so that is how I would think of that. And it's also, we did a podcast a long time ago about what we call the fitness stock market. And that was that the goal, the economy's rough at the moment, right? But generally speaking, if you took a look at the stock market, the S&P 500, whatever it happened to be, you would generally want to see that that line is slightly going up in a positive direction, slightly up. If it's going up very sharply, it's probably not sustainable, and the market's probably going to crash. Probably the same thing with your fitness. You want this nice gradual increase. It's a nice gradual increase. But no one is a robot. So you're going to have dips and downturns. And anyone who says that you're not is lying to you. You are a human being. But here's the other thing. If you zoomed out over like a 5-year, you can go like to the S&P 500 or something and go to like a 5-year view, you will most likely see a nice, gentle, upward, steady trajectory because you're looking at it at a 5-year view. Now, if you zoom in to a 1-year view, what looked to be a nice, beautiful line, you'll see that there's some jagged points in there, up and down, up and down, up and down. And if you zoom in on a month, then you'll really see some up and down. You zoom in on a week, and you'll really see some jagged points. That's because you're going to have ups, you're going to have downs. You're going to have days where you touched a PR and days that you didn't. You're going to have days where you lifted more than you thought and days that you didn't. That's all the ups and downs of life. That's the ups and downs in strength and conditioning. But when you zoom out over the course of several months or a year or multiple years, what you want to see is that gentle trajectory up. That's kind of the fitness stock market as I try to explain it to people. And I think it's a very realistic and honest assessment of how that works. So hopefully that's beneficial. Okay. Appreciate the questions, everybody. Have yourselves a wonderful day. It's a rest day. I will very much be taking it. And we'll talk later.